All right, today we're going to talk about a French film called The Wild Boys, which we saw at the Loft Cinema during the Loft Film Fest. As you can see, we've got this new fantastic green screen setup, got kind of a studio setup, so I guess we can put me anywhere in the world that we want, get really creative, as crazy as we can. Let's go for that, and we'll get right into this. It's a little too on the nose.
I don't know what to say.
Opening title crawl. Come back from that. Is it working for you so far? You feeling good? You're feeling right? You're feeling pop and you're feeling jazzed? All right, I like that smile. We're gonna come back, and we're back. So today we're gonna talk about The Wild Boys. If you think about it as a combination of Alex and his group of droogies from A Clockwork Orange, played by young French women with a nightmare from the depths of David Lynch's mind. It's a very kind of neon dream 80s film where you've got a lot of scenes that are very bright blue, bright red neon lights. The rest of it's kind of in black and white, a lot of smoke, kind of very simplistic settings and backdrops. You begin in France, suddenly these characters commit a horrible action, and suddenly they're on this boat taken off by this awful captain who is claiming to take them to an island where he can tame even the wildest of bars. Once the characters arrive there, you've got this very interesting dynamic where you've got these angsty kind of teens, these girls playing boys, which gives you this weird kind of coming-of-age story in a sense, who are being led around by this physically domineering captain who's kind of controlling and abusive. And as they go through this island and as they're kind of exploring it, very strange things begin to happen, including rifts between the group, obviously attempts to escape from the captain's clutches, and also other people on the island that one would think ought not be there in the first place. I'm going to take a little step back from the story, not that I think that I was spoiling too much or that by any chance it was making too much sense. And at this point, it's a good time to mention that today's topic is going to be God damn it! But what I really want to get into is, again, the idea of abstraction and absurdity in film. The reason I want to get into this is because a lot of people during the movie were laughing at moments that I thought were very interesting. And that's not a critique of it, and it's not a knock on those people or to say that they got anything wrong. What it really is saying, though, is that there are moments of absurdity in film where I think people don't know how to react, where you're being given information visually that can't be taken literally. It doesn't seem to make any sense and kind of seems bizarre and absurd. And absurdity is okay, because absurdity is what you need in a visual medium to really convey complex ideas. One example I'll give is if you are writing a script and something happens to a character and you really want people to know that that character is upset, but he can't show it. There's no way to do that without either really solid acting and directing to get some kind of subtleties through the physical acting of the performer, or you need some expository information. You need really bad dialogue that says through a kind of a roundabout way, he's angry. And that's typically seen as bad filmmaking, and it's not really fun. Meanwhile, in books, what you can do is you can have very interesting metaphors. So instead of saying, by the way, he's angry or he's in love, you can say, you know, oh, his heart was on fire. A good example I'll give visually is in Requiem for a Dream, when Jennifer Connelly is having dinner with her father, and he's making comments, and he's really annoying, and he's got food in his teeth, and if you've got any kind of like weird ADD about that, it's going to drive you nuts. And you might want to do what Jennifer Connelly does, which is stab her father in the hand with a fork. Quickly you realize that that's sort of a dream sequence. It's a fantasy she has in that moment. Now you're left with a couple choices as the audience. One is to think that she's really just fantasizing about harming him. And then the other is to realize that that's just her guttural, visceral, emotional reaction to that sequence of events. They're visually telling you that she's so angry, she just wants to stab him in the hand with a fork. And sometimes you have to get outside the box a little bit like that, and you have to show things that aren't necessarily meant to be taken literally. And when you're trying to deal with a complex philosophical concept, you have to get a little more and more and more absurd. You have to get a little bit outside the realm of reality. And if you're looking at sort of a film that's conveying kind of a dreamlike, zen-like quality, you're gonna end up with like a David Lynch type film, like a Mulholland Drive, that's really meditative on a concept and not necessarily meant to be taken as a linear storytelling approach. And for The Wild Boys, it's a film that is really trying to explore concepts related to identity. Identity related to freedom and sociological constructs, but really specifically and really hitting on points of gender relationships, sexual identity, and how by changing people's identity, you change their actions, their interpretations, their behaviors, and their instincts, and who they are as a person. So as you can imagine, things get pretty weird. And it doesn't mean that it's wrong to laugh at it. It doesn't mean that it's wrong to be confused by it. If anything, I think it's the biggest barrier of entry to a lot of people in films like this, is you just don't know how to react to what you're given. And sometimes you gotta just give yourself up to it. And in many ways, that's what this film is about, is these characters giving themselves up to the island, figuring out what the journey has in store for them, where they're going to end up, and who they're going to become. And in a lot of ways, it's a fun journey to watch, if not only because it's beautiful and fun, and the music is really good, and the acting is really good, but because while it is a confusing journey, at the end of it makes you feel as if there's some sort of resolution and reward to it. So I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a lot of fun. If you can see the guys, I would go out and I'd take a look for it online when it's released. Who should see it? If you like films that are abstract, if you like films for the aesthetics and for how they look, and if you are into something that's going to make you think a lot, I think it's a film that you would definitely be well served to take a look at. Now, if you're somebody who likes a very linear storytelling approach and gets turned off when you see things that don't particularly make literal sense, it might be kind of a confusing and perplexing experience, and might not be one that you would enjoy. I guess I'm done.